couple of weeks ago, the Minister for Defence, Richard Marles, announced that the government was going to take really serious steps to redress the problem of waste in the defence portfolio. According to the Minister, Australia, under the previous government, had wasted well over $6 billion on projects which were either too late, didn't perform, or required such remedy that you had to spend more money on them. Now, it's a good thing, I think, that the government wants to address historical waste. But what we should be worried about is what projects in the future are going to take us down similar sorts of paths where money is thrown against problems which we should have foreseen, didn't, and then are left carrying unbelievable costs to fix up things which either have gone wrong or we didn't think about in the first place. Historically, we've had a lot of experience with waste in the defence portfolio. Some people might be aware of a project which was called Sea Sprite, where the Royal Australian Navy was going to acquire a helicopter to do almost every role that you could imagine a helicopter to be capable of. That led to the expenditure of about a bit over $2 billion, which was totally wasted. Not one aircraft ever joined the Royal Australian Navy, and of the whole 24 that were going to be acquired, only one ever took off and landed again and never took off once more. The reason being that it simply couldn't meet the tasks allocated to it. We've had other projects of similar nature. The Navy acquired 2 warships from the United States, which were rust buckets. They didn't do much while they were here and they were eventually paid off. All of those funds were just wasted. Now, the issue here is long-term planning, and the project about which I think we need to be most concerned is the project that would have us acquire about 8 nuclear-powered submarines, either from the United Kingdom or from the United States. These things are absolutely new for Australia. We have no capacity in Australia to design them. We have no capacity in Australia to run them. We have no capacity in Australia to build them. Now, that might mean that we will have submarines built in the United States or Great Britain and have them delivered, and that probably would be quicker. It would also be very expensive, though possibly much less expensive than trying to build them in Australia. Yet, we have promises from both the previous government and the current government that we're going to build our new submarines here in Australia. So you can begin to imagine why we should be worried about the enormous amounts of money which could be sunk straight down the drain as we look to acquiring things which we've never had before and which we think we want against scenarios that we're not actually all that sure of. We do really need to have submarines in our defence inventory. But the moment you start getting into big submarines, particularly for a navy the size of the Royal Australian Navy, you're starting to talk about really significant quantum increases in manpower and spending. I'm not sure that Australia is up for that at this point. So, when we're thinking about this new major acquisition, which will see the defence budget increase over time from 2% of GDP to something around 2.2% of GDP, a spend going from $50 billion a year to $80 billion a year over the next decade or so, we have to be very concerned about the amount of taxpayers' money that can simply be poured down the drain. For these reasons, we need a huge amount of discipline if we're going to go down that path. And at this point, we have no firm plans that anybody can identify which would justify such a spend. In all of that, we've got to be as worried about forward waste as we might be about historical waste. And that is a serious task for this government.